Hi, I'm Sarah, and I had the pleasure of managing last year's Fulbright selection process for Embassy Kabul. I want to talk to you a little bit about the process this year, from the internal side of how we review your applications. Last year we received 1,435, and this year we think it'll probably be over 2,000. So starting at midnight on May 1st, we download and print one copy of every single application we receive. We then have Americans go through and review for technical eligibility. We actually check through and make sure you have a university degree or a master's if you're applying for doctoral, and we go through and make sure that you meet all of our other criteria, including 2 essays. Once that's done and you've passed that stage, only about 50 applications last year didn't make the cut. Your application is placed into a giant folder, usually about 20 to 25 applications per panel, as we call them here. And those panels are reviewed by a subject matter expert. In fact, 4 of them. So each American reviewer takes one of these sheets and they actually go through your entire application and rate you on these categories. So this includes things like, did you have clear study objectives? How was your written English? Are you well-rounded, which is a term Americans use to talk about whether or not you have other experiences outside of just your academics. Have you volunteered in the past? Are you engaged in your community? Do you have interests and hobbies? Things like that all matter. Finally, we look and see if we suspect plagiarism. If your application is identified as being plagiarized, which means that any part of it is copied or is not original text that you wrote yourself, we actually go through the computer program to verify whether or not it might have been lifted from somewhere on the internet. Once that's done, we calculate the total scores from the panel review. So, for example, this person actually got a 4 out of 5, which is pretty good. Last year, we moved forward any applicant that had a total score of 18 or higher. This year, it'll probably be about the same. So as you can imagine, it's really competitive during this stage, and you need to make sure your application is as strong as possible. Out of 1,435 applications, about 400 moved on to the next round. The institutional TOEFL tests English language skills. If you've already taken the exam and have an official score, you can submit that instead. But you need to have an exam score of over 600. When the scores are received from the institutional TOEFL, about 200 people will move forward to the next round, which is the personal interview. The interview panel will include 2 Americans, 1 Afghan staff member who has been with the program and knows the ins and outs of Fulbright, and a Fulbright alumni who's an expert in your field of study. So for example, perhaps they've done their MBA if you're a business student. Now, before we actually go to the interview, we prepare a summary of your application. This includes your scores, a little bit of your biographic information, and it lists any questions we might have for you. We want to make sure that we cover in the interview. When you get to interview day, we have separate guidance on how to prepare. But just so you know, this is what it looks like when we actually go through and rank you. We give you an overall score. Unfortunately, this person was not selected, or at least received a low score from this reviewer. And we really look at your field of study, what's motivated you, what your future plans are, and we're looking to see if you are a future leader of Afghanistan. Once you have successfully passed the interview round, about 100 or so this year will pass, about 3 for the doctoral program, 75 for masters, and between 10-15 for Humphrey and FLTA. After that's done, the process is actually not over. You'll then sit for the regular TOEFL, the GRE, and eventually we'll complete a form that looks a little bit like this. This is actually our recommendation letter of your application, and this moves forward to the Fulbright Scholarship Board in Washington, D.C. And the Scholarship Board is 12 people appointed by the President of the United States of America. They're actually the final authority, and they stamp your application as approved or not. We welcome you to apply this year and look forward to receiving your application.